Savitri is the story of the Divine Mother, the embodiment of the Divine Mother upon earth. And merely reading it is very liberating. We look at this world, this creation, our own life, mostly at our own life, of course. Well, sometimes only at others' lives. But we look at it through a very small window, that too wearing thick glasses of ignorance. And we draw all kinds of conclusions. We create systems, philosophies, creeds, cults, get trapped into it more and more. These are finite ways of looking at life and creation, ways of the ego and ignorance. They do not teach us what this game is about, this ambiguous, dangerous game, where delight and danger walk together. We only remain stuck with the dualities, which are nothing but reactions of our consciousness. The essence of the game escapes us. And even when we play it at a low pitch. But the same game has a higher pitch. Like in computer games, we have 2 levels or 3 levels. We play the game at the level of the ignorance, but there is another level at which the game can be played. Just as in the Rig Vedas it is said that it is Surya, the light of truth, who becomes Yama, the guardian of the darkness. It is the same. But the way he deals with us is very different from the way sun in all his splendor deals with us. Yama is busy calculating and dealing with things according to that. But Surya, he just illumines light and love, splendor, fills us regardless of who we are, what we are. Because it has only one task of drawing everything towards itself like a magnet. Something of that light, that splendor, comes down upon earth to serve as a mediating bridge between earth and heaven. And that something, someone, that mysterious, ineffable love, that force which sleeps in the hush and the silence of the gods, of which the gods know not, that comes down, assumes a human body, and leads us on the pathways of the divine. So when we read Savitri, all these moods, these states of consciousness are born in us. It's so difficult otherwise to experience these states of consciousness which are embodied in Savitri. It completes us. There are many things within us we don't know, many parts. And Savitri reveals those things, awakens, and we once again become complete and whole. This is the magic of Savitri, the story of the Divine Mother. But who brings her down? So we have in the first part, which we finished earlier, the yoga of Aswapati. His yoga is to bring down the Divine Mother upon earth and establish her in our midst. Just as Sri Aurobindo did. As a forerunner, he embodied within himself the higher possibilities, those possibilities which earthly beings have never known. But he could establish it in himself. He is the Lord of tapasya. He could do a tapasya. By that tapasya, the whole consciousness could ascend to the higher realms. We cannot even imagine by any stretch of imagination that kind of tapasya, that kind of utter renunciation. So someone has to come down and intercede on our behalf. And Aswapati knows that he alone, left to himself, will inspire and influence the earth, show to earth and earthlings that there is a greater height, a greater splendor, and call us to those heights. But as Savitri reveals to us, heaven's call is rare, rarer the heart that heeds. We climb little and we fall down again. This what where we had stopped, call to the quest. That even the sages and seers, they see but one half of truth. They don't see the completeness. The gods are still too few in mortal forms. So someone has to come down, and Savitri knows that this transmutation is only possible by the power and presence of the Divine Mother. So first part ends with Aswapati bringing down and establishing the Mother in our midst. Divine Mother takes a human form. Such a wonder, such a marvel. And what does she come to do? So beautifully, we seem to be doing, everybody talks about doing Mother's work. But what is Mother's work? We read such a beautiful message yesterday. It's a chance for the earth. Chance for transformation, for the supramental to be received by the earth. It's too bright, too brilliant. Our minds cannot hold. We are more likely to become inframental in the process. Such is the power and the glory. So she comes. She gives us just what is necessary. Like a good doctor dispensing the right amount of dose. She receives it, passes on to us, and prepares us to receive it. This is the work. But for that, she must also equip herself. She must once again recollect all the threads and strands of the efforts in the past. This is not the first time that the Divine Mother is trying this. Lives after lives, like Krishna says to Arjuna, many are our lives, but you have forgotten. But I remember, always we have struggled and labored for the victory. Mother says that in one of her conversations, that we have all met in previous lives. We have struggled for the Divine's victory upon earth, and we shall share the joy of the victory. Just imagine, sometimes it's beautiful to imagine. Yeah? Imagination is always beautiful, but we turn it, unfortunately, into morbid things. Instead of imagining all kinds of things, why not imagine that we were little monkeys, squirrels, around Rama, Krishna? How beautiful life becomes. And somewhere they must have in the passing looked upon us. This monkey? Okay, sometime. Aeons pass. We too must have wept some tears when Christ was crucified. Unknown tears in some remote corner of the world. Felt marveled at the mystic, majestic, peaceful, serene look of Buddha. All this we must have gone through. And then we come to this journey where now all these lines must merge, converge into one great goal. So the Mother also, she must recollect all these strands, threads of her past. This is her yoga. She recollects the cosmic past. We see that subsequently we'll read it in the book of yoga. So that is part 2. And then part 3, where now she is armed and equipped to do the work. And what a work she has taken upon herself, to battle with the forces of darkness, death, ignorance, falsehood. How does she battle? She calls them around her. And with what power she battles? What is her trident? Does she carry a bow and arrow? Does she use the Sudarshan Chakra? She has come this time with a very different kind of a power. And she says it is the power of love. The purest love, the highest love. Love that is never embodied upon earth. Love that only the poets have sung in their visions of Radha. When they spoke about Radha, they conceived such a love. But that love and Ananda have never been on earth physically, so to say. She brings that power, that love which never fails, that love that never fades. And with that love, she hopes to heal the abysses, to fill them with light and splendor and truth, to awaken that consciousness everywhere. So Savitri is also not just the story of the divine love, but the book of love. That's how Sri Aurobindo describes it in one of the cantos. It is the book of bliss, the story of love. And we stop there with the advent of this divine love, the coming of the Divine Mother. She's on earth and she grows, just a little bit of that background, and then we continue. The entire tapasya of Aswapati to bring down the Divine Mother on earth and establish her in our midst is so beautifully summarized on page 315, Book 3, Canto 2. And this is really divine humility. That all this mighty work, Sri Aurobindo would say, it is only a seed cast in endless time. We love to boast about our accomplishment and achievement. Sometimes silly accomplishment and achievement like doing a PhD in Harvard University counts for nothing. It doesn't free us of our ignorance. But here is the divine with all that work. What does he say? This was a seed cast into endless time. So, those who ever doubt, think, wonder what will happen to Sri Aurobindo and the mother's work, they have sown this seed on earth. As long as time remains, the glory of the timeless, the glory of the eternal's birth in time will remain. And it is only going to blossom with passage of time. Centuries and ages will express it. We are nothing, we are just coming out, 100 years we are celebrating of the mother's meeting with Sri Aurobindo. Surely we'll celebrate 1,000 years someday in another form, another body. A word is spoken or a light is shown. A moment sees the ages toil to express. Sri Aurobindo has seen it and the mother has done it. Whether we see it or not is at one level irrelevant. If we see it, so much the better for us. We have the joy of participating in the great adventure. If we don't see it, the work does not stop. The seed will blossom. However much people on the surface may debate whether there is a seed inside or not, the farmer will only say, wait for the right season, the right moment, and it will blossom. So, flashing out of the timeless leap the worlds, an eternal instant is the cause of the years. All he had done was to prepare a field. The Lord prepared the field. For whom? For her feet to tread upon it. For her mystery to take form and name. For her love to blossom in human heart. For her sweetness and oneness to express itself through the multiplicity of this creation. That's what he has prepared the field for. His small beginnings asked for a mighty end. Small beginning? Just how many people accompanied Sri Aurobindo? One or two with him, and maybe 3 or 4 small beginnings. Who could have imagined that this small beginning, where is it going to end? When the mother was asked, she said, one day this whole earth will become the avatar of the Lord. Not just one avatar. This whole earth. Where is it going to end? And it's such a joy to even imagine that we are participating in this journey. That one day this whole creation will become an avatar of the Lord. Small beginnings. But sometimes we remain stuck to the beginnings. Beginning is only a beginning. It's a seed. It's just a little plot. Its blossom will spread everywhere. For all that he had been must now new shape. In him, her joy to embody, to enshrine her beauty and greatness in his house of life. So we know how Sri Aurobindo was constantly embodying these greater and greater levels of consciousness, their beauty, their power, their glory, their grandeur. But, and here comes the marvel and the hope, but now his being was too wide for self. His heart's demand had grown immeasurable. His single freedom could not satisfy her light, her bliss. He asked for earth and men. So how could he be satisfied just by a personal embodiment? Sri Aurobindo had embodied. We see all these experiences, including right into the very cells, that Ananda, he had gone beyond the supramental, if I may say so. And not only that, what kind of experiments? Even the amount of waste that is produced in the body, even that should be reduced to the minimum. To that extent, I mean, things which are totally to be discarded, subconscient, even on that he had worked to reduce it to the minimum. What kind of working that was? But obviously, he was not happy just with a single achievement. He was given this choice: in thy lonely achievement, reign apart. He was given that choice, but he refuses that choice. He says, no, I don't want this. I want for everyone. And that's why we have inscribed at the Samadhi, how he's, and the mother's words, that he sacrificed his own realization to hasten the collective realization upon earth. This is the sacrifice. Otherwise, it would have been very easy for him, for the mother, and we, what shall I say, wonderful disciples, because they sacrificed their realization, we wonder, did they really realize? This is our, to use the mother's common expression, imbecility. This is one of the words she would use. So, here we have Aswapati's work, Sri Aurobindo's work, mother in our midst, and the mother is born, and there is something very interesting. If you read life of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, we see Sri Aurobindo achieves everything through a hard tapasya. But in mother, it is as if right from childhood. Because this is a work, she has come for this. She is the first prototype of the new race. What will be that new race? Right from childhood. If one really needs hard tapasya once again to achieve, it won't be. So right from her birth, matter was being accustomed to that new light. It had already, she brought it down with her on earth. So we have on page 353, in this high signal moment of the gods, answering earth's yearning and her cry for bliss, a greatness from our other countries came. So, for this one moment, centuries and ages, humanity has yearned. We have another line in Savitri, her coming they had asked for earth and men. Who were they? The seers and sages. They have asked, come, how many struggles and sufferings, forget about our individual suffering, but even those, the martyrs who achieved those heights of glories and had to be sacrificed, what would have been their state? How many seers and saints have aspired that may this earth be healed and redeemed? So she comes, is silence in the noise of earthly things. Immutably reveal the secret word. A mightier influx filled the oblivious clay. Even at the age of 2, she would experience this. That a great light, when mother was asked that, mother, what Satprem asked mother, that in adventure of consciousness, how should I start? So normally we start from what is commonly experienced to humanity and then go to the next. So the mother says, start with consciousness. So the disciple is totally, she says that is the true sequence of things. And then she gives her own life's example. That the first thing I experienced was consciousness. At 2, earliest memories go at 5. How she used to experience a light above and she would pull it into the body. She says, of course, the mind was not developed, the intellect, I didn't know what words, she had not read the scriptures. But that consciousness was the first experience. She says this is the normal course in actually everyone. Everyone at childhood, when we are born, we have forgotten. But the first contact is with the consciousness which we are meant to embody, realize, express in life. And that then begins to mold the clay, and slowly then she says the next was vital, then the mental, and then the spiritual. So it followed like that. But the first is consciousness. So she is born with that. A mightier influx filled the oblivious clay. How beautiful. A lamp was lit, a sacred image made. She is the temple door to things beyond. How beautiful it is described in Savitri, Canto 2. A golden temple door to things beyond. So one doesn't have to go to a temple when she is there. I'm reminded of a incident. I think it was Jaya in early 1920s. She was to go to Rameshwaram and she came here, took a detour. What a lovely detour. And of course she came to also see Sri Aurobindo. And then Sri Aurobindo asked her after a while that you don't want to go to Rameshwaram. She said, after having seen the living Rameshwar, why should I take the trouble of going to Rameshwar? This is the living Rameshwar, the living temple, sacred image. A mediating ray had touched the earth, bridging the gulf between man's mind and God's. So Sri Aurobindo's writings are like God's mind, beyond us. Mother's writings are the mediating link between man's mind and God's. Sri Aurobindo moves between large spaces of time. Looks like he is moving from one galaxy to another sometimes. Such is the swift movement of a large vision thought. The mother bridges those gaps beautifully. Its brightness linked our transience to the unknown. And now he gives the secret of the avatar, over which Pandits have debated for centuries and will debate for the coming few centuries. Whether the formless can put on a form, whether the Almighty can afford to become weak. These Pandits have this habit of debating. They love to debate. Then only they feel they are alive. So here, look at these marvelous lines. The whole secret of avatar is given here. A spirit of its celestial source aware, translating heaven into a human shape, descended into earth's imperfect mold, and wept not, fallen to mortality. All of us are some kind of a descent. We're coming from above, from another realm. But we are drawn back into Prakriti. Prakriti covers us and we are so identified with it that we forget ourselves. Prakriti shows us various things and we are carried by it. Of course, there is a meaning in it that we discover, and Savitri reveals to us that Prakriti is actually preparing us to recover our own divinity. So she has her ways. But the difference is when Avatar comes, he presses upon the Prakriti and puts it around like a cloak. This is the difference, because he has to work upon it. He is conscious all the time of the Godhead. Unlike the ordinary mortal who is also covered with Prakriti, but has forgotten himself in the play and the dance. And the Avatar is fully conscious of the play and the dance. He has assumed it deliberately. In fact, the Gita uses a wonderful term, pressing upon it. He forces it to shape a body and mind for him. So here, a spirit of its celestial source aware. We are not aware of it, but she, when she took birth, she was aware. She came to do certain things. Of course, it doesn't mean that she could write a thesis on it. Intellectual mind is not developed, but she is conscious of a work, of a mission. So this is Savitri, and she grows, and as she grows, the past comes back to her because the entire past aspirations have to reintegrate itself with the new avatar. That is shown beautifully in the Indian story of avatars, where the past avatars comes and hands him over. So all the past achievements, spiritual achievements of mankind, they come and pour into her. And this also we had read, the growth of the flame over her vast millennial influences, and the deep godheads of a grandiose past looked on her and saw the future's godheads come, as if this magnet drew their powers unseen. They would come time to time, even the great powers, and how they would manifest in ways sometimes defying all our orthodox ideas. How the mother, when she was called as the Sphinx, and how when a group of a monitress, a very hard monitress, she was punishing a child bit too harshly. And the mother, they all came and requested her, pleaded to her to intercede. And she went and asked her, would you change this decision or not? No, she held the hand. And she held it till eventually she said, okay, keep her. Now what power would have been transmitted? Normally if somebody would do it, she would punish her also. But there was a power when a bully 5 years older to her age, who was bullying everybody, suddenly when mother comes across her, she lifts him literally and puts him down, almost throws him. And she says it was the first experience of Mahakali entering into her body. So all these powers, divinities, seers and sages in a body sleep, from 11 to 13 years, she used to have these experience of various lineages coming to her and revealing their truths. And because they knew that she is the one who is going to accomplish the future. So she comes equipped, and what she brought with her, the people who meet, how our ignorant view can look at it and how the divine would look at it, page 362. Aware of the universal self in all, she turned to living hearts and human forms. Her soul's reflections, complements, counterparts, she had to gather certain elements from earth nature, bring them close to her, get the experience of the human, and how she recounts it. From my childhood, that day we were reading, from my childhood, I have somehow always been in contact, I have been brought in contact with people who were full of ingratitude. Imagine. So she was brought in contact. Why? And then she says, because of a certain work I had to do. She is not complaining, she is not grudging. So she has met all kinds of humanity who gather, who have to play a role, a part. The close outlying portions of her being divided from her by walls of body and mind, yet to her spirit bound by ties divine. They are also aspects of the one divinity, and she must work upon those aspects, she calls them. And then we had read this long description of how different types of humanity came and responded. And eventually, as she grows, there comes a time when she has to be ready for the great mission. And that great mission is beautifully revealed in the call to the quest. She must find those, that instrument through which this new epiphany must be worked out in human instruments. And in Savitri's story, she must find that other self, hand in hand, she must walk with him. This is actually a mystic marriage, but here it is described as the story of Savitri and Satyavan. So on page 374, King Aswapati becomes aware that now the time has come for discovering the one with whom she must work out this play. There is a very interesting story of the mother. We had, I think, touched upon it last time. It's a story, I think she wrote in 1911 or 10, around that time. Subtly just before she came to outwardly know of Sri Aurobindo, it's called a sapphire tale, where there is this lady Leona. She is waiting on an island, and she knows somewhere there is someone with whom she is destined to meet, and together they must do a work. And there, far away, there is Meotha, in a country where everything is harmonious and beautiful. And the king tells, when he is coming of age, that Meotha, you go and find out somebody with whom you should rule this kingdom, because it's necessary. Without that counterpart, that feminine aspect, you cannot rule the kingdom. You find there is someone. So he goes through lands, obeying that will of his father, and eventually he goes to the island, and as he comes, she instantly recognizes him. And then the two start going together. It ends on a very beautiful note, and that's the beauty of that story. She doesn't ask anything from this prince. Where do you come from? What is your lineage? Who are you? Like today, first there is a biodata put on shadi.com, and then there is another interview. There are 3-4 levels of interview, from pay packets to the whole lineage. She doesn't ask anything. She sails, and as she sets the sail, she tells him, I have not asked anything of you. I do not know anything about your outer, what you are, who you are. But I trust you, and I trust my vision. What a beautiful thing. This was the greatness of ancient times during the days of Swamvar, where children were equipped to find who is it with whom they should walk the great journey of life. Why is it necessary? This hint Sri Aurobindo gives in one of his later writings at several places. Of course, he was always a bit restrained in speaking about it, because it could be totally misinterpreted, and people have misinterpreted it, because with the first blush of adolescence, everybody starts looking for a soulmate. So in 1926, around that time, or little before, when disciples would ask him, he would say, well, there is a truth, but I am disinclined to speak about it. To Dilip Kumar Roy, he even said, think 50 times before venturing into such things. But in 1949, he gives hints at this truth, at this secret. He says that there is a truth in the divine of this principle of the Ishwarayan Shakti. And on earth, there is a need to reproduce that story. Of course, it's a fact that 999 times that story is a flop show. But nature attempts, because nature wants through many approximations to arrive at that truth. A long preparation is needed. First condition is complete freedom from desire, complete freedom from the sexual impulse. Who is going to fulfill such conditions? And yet, those were the days when human beings knew the truth behind everything upon earth. There is somewhere a secret truth, and that is what is revealed in these lines. Page 374. Thy spirit came not down a star alone. It's just the same thing. The one became two. O living inscription of the beauty of love, mistled in aureate virginity, what message of heavenly strength and bliss in thee is written with the eternal sun-white script, one shall discover and greaten with it his life. To whom thou loosenest thy heart's jewel strings. It is needed to bring out a force which is asleep. And from a psychological point of view, we can say that every person carries within himself a masculine and a feminine part. And in truth, we are all females in the womb. And it's only by a certain action of hormones that some become males, others remain females. So there is even a biological truth in the fact that we are all women and there is only one Purusha. But when there is a differentiation, the The masculine elements in nature must bring out the feminine. All the aspects of tenderness, care, affection, sweetness, warmth, giving, these are aspects which are feminine in nature. Even power, to defend, these are beautiful aspects. Whereas masculine aspects relate mostly to thought, ideas, speculation, analysis, logic. Please don't interpret it to mean that women are illogical. They don't need logic because they are intuitive. So let me correct it. So they intuitively know, and it's very difficult for them to put into words, and that's why there is a constant struggle, because men want always rational explanations, and very often in the long run, women's intuition turns out to be more true than man's intellectual analysis. But that apart, every woman equally has a masculine element in it. And in the play of nature, it is through the coming together that it is brought out. So here that secret, Sri Aurobindo has revealed every secret in Savitri. He has left nothing untouched. One shall discover and greaten with it his life. To whom thou loosenest thy heart's jewel strings, O rubies of silence, lips from which there stole low laughter, music of tranquility, star lustrous eyes awake in sweet large night, and limbs like fine linked poems made of gold. Stanzed to glimmering curves by artist gods, depart where love and destiny call your charm. Venture through the deep world to find thy mate. For somewhere on the longing breast of earth, thy unknown lover waits for thee, the unknown. Thy soul has strength and needs no other guide. How beautiful this is. So the only thing needed is to awaken the soul power, the soul strength. I have heard this, I have not read this, I don't know how far it is true. When Nalnida was asked, Nalnida was told by Sri Aurobindo, go get married and come back. He went, got married and came back. And he went for a few years, and eventually, of course, Indulekadi joined him. So he was asked, how did you know, how did you find out? He said, nothing. I just obeyed the Lord, I went and I saw and I knew. That's all. There is no logic, no analysis. Of course, if we try it in our ignorance, truth should always be written with a footnote. Caution, these things are performed by experts. Because more often than not, we may land up in just making the most infra-rational choices. But there is a knowing of the soul. It recognizes. And obviously, to have that knowing, one has to be free from all outer attractions, all external allurements, all calculations in the mind. One has to be free inside. Then the soul can recognize the answering soul. Next page, or rather the last two lines. One force shall be your mover and your guide. One light shall be around you and within. Hand in strong hand, confront heaven's question, life. And there have been instances in history, for instance of Josephine and Napoleon Bonaparte. There have been instances like that, where the real power, the secret was inside, within, with the woman who stood behind. And when the man discarded her, he also broke down, because it was his Shakti, she was his Shakti, and that is true of many, many lives in the past that we see. And that's why it was enjoined to guard her with utmost care, because she was supposed to be an embodiment of the Divine Mother in some form in a man's house. Hand in strong hand, confront heaven's question, life. Challenge the ordeal of the immense disguise. This world is a disguise of the divine, and it tests us and teases us. And together to confront that enigma, to go through all the complex issues it will create, difficult questions, and one has to solve it, each one in unique way. And the greater the difficulty, the greater the possibility of the realization. Of course, Savitri is given the greatest difficulty of cutting short the life by death. But we all experience it in some way or the other. As death says, human beings continue to live, but love dies. It is also a kind of death. How to confront that enigma and question? Because as Savitri says, love must not die in the human heart. Love is man's lien on the absolute. It is the one energy which can be purified and become the bridge. Without that energy, and today's civilization suffers from want of it. And if that energy is not there, then human beings become listless, mortified, all kinds of cruelty, harshness, everything appears because of the lack of this energy. And to bring it out, purify, refine it, uplift it, sublimate it, take it to the transcendent heights, together, that is the task destiny gives. Then meet, face the high gods, crowned with felicity. Then meet a greater God, thyself beyond time. It's very interesting that in the story of, we had stopped here, we'll just continue the next canto, but just before that, this in Indian thought, a very remarkable story about this complementarity which applies at both levels. A story of soul and nature and the story of complementary beings. And that is the story of Nal and Damayanti. So Nal and Damayanti's story is amazing. Sri Aurobindo in fact has written briefly just few pages on this story. This theme must have really engaged him very much. And those 2 pages are of exquisite beauty, where how Nala and Damayanti, they get to know of each other. It's in a dream, just like the mother saw in her vision Sri Aurobindo. And she did not meet straight away Sri Aurobindo. The first person she met was just the opposite, but he looked like Sri Aurobindo. It's interesting. She says when she met Theo, she said he had an amazing similarity in his profile to Sri Aurobindo. And if you look at his picture, he looks like that little bit. But she knew it is not he. How she knows? He says, I knew from within he did not have that vibration. If she would have gone only by appearances, it could deceive. So in the story of Nal and Damayanti, we also have that Damayanti has a dream of Nal. And then of course there is a long story how they come together. And then the gods test them. Step by step, they end up losing everything. Even that bit of piece of cloth which Nala has given, he has tears. Only one piece of cloth is left, and he tears half a piece and gives it to Damayanti to cover herself. And half a piece he wraps around him, and even that he loses. And then he loses Damayanti. So Damayanti goes elsewhere, and this man is literally naked, wandering on the roads, in the forest, bandits and whatnot, and eventually becomes a slave. And how through circumstances, eventually fate weaves their coming together. It's an amazing story, and about how the gods and the titans, they both test. So here we read those lines that step by step confront the question life, then the testing of the gods, and then ascend beyond that and find the greater self beyond time. So we had stopped at that, just a few lines, because today we have only one session. We have to start Canto 4, The Quest. It's a very amazing canto. In fact, the cantos that are going to follow are amazing in their beauty. Some of the most beautiful cantos, where Sri Aurobindo literally makes not just nature, but the Godhead hidden in nature comes close to us. But the very first few lines are very interesting, that outwardly it is the quest of Savitri to find her soulmate. But Savitri is the incarnation of the Divine Mother, the Divine's quest. So it also is the quest of the Divine to find fit instruments. It is said in our Indian thought, and so very true, that it is not the disciple who seeks the master, it is the master who seeks the disciple. And the master conceals himself. Even when he has found the disciple, he conceals himself for a long time. But he starts preparing him, starts needing him. And a time comes when they are ready. The disciple is ready, and then he comes face to face with the master. So it is the quest of the Divine Mother to find who would be the right instrument. And we will see so many kinds of beings she will meet before she chooses Satyavan. The world ways opened before Savitri. How beautiful. This world itself is a quest. We move through this world to find the oneself. Even later on, when Savitri is nearing her soul and she asks the gods, tell me where my soul is. They tell her, follow the world's winding highways to their source. At the end of all forces, energies, we find that. Whichever way, wherever we start with that wideness, but eventually we'll find that. And that was the secret also of the pyramid, the structure. We'll probably talk about it some other time. The world ways opened before Savitri. Pyramid at one level is all the powers from all these different coordinates of space ascending towards that heaven, ending into the one. In fact, the mother's previous incarnation, one of her incarnations, her son, surely she must have given the idea. It's not documented, but I believe Amenhotep III, or Amenhotep IV, he is the one who actually started this cult of the pyramid and the sun. He established the sun as the worshipping deity and removed all, like in our Vedanta. So he had brought that revolution. So the world ways opened before Savitri. This was a very important work. In our ancient scriptures, they speak about Deshatan, Bhikshatan. This was necessary. Just like in certain countries, it's compulsory to serve the military. I believe it's a wonderful thing. If every young person serves the military for a few years, it brings in a lot of discipline. But another thing which is very important is Deshatan. So when youngsters grew up, they went past an age, 18, like the bird pushing the little child out of the nest to learn to fly. Parents would tell the child, go out, look into this world. They must come out of the protective cocoon. And then when they explore this world, they grow towards the oneself. This is very interesting. And we had that wonderful play on 2nd December where the good Wazir, Al-Fazl, his wife, that good Wazir's son, he is kind of a, careless, reckless fellow, but good at heart. He has inherited those qualities from his father. So his sister Dunya tells him, what, you are all the time busy running from here and there. And then his mother says, have you ever thought what will happen when we are not here? When your father's hand is taken away from you, he is the Wazir in the kingdom. And when I am not there to take care of you, I make such things and you just take it for granted and you are running around. And Sri Aurobindo makes him say a remarkable sentence, and this should comfort all mothers and fathers who worry that what will happen when we are not there. So when his mother says, can you imagine, you are not responsible at all, most irresponsible boy who is running from here and there all the time, doing pranks. What will happen when your dad is not there, when I am not here? So the son says, then life begins. Only Sri Aurobindo could give such a master stroke in 3 words. He summarizes. He says, then life begins. And he describes, then I will travel to far off lands. I'll go here, I'll go there. I'll face the adventure and I'll learn and grow. You're not letting me grow. So we have this beautiful line, the world ways opened before Savitri. At first a strangeness, just a few lines. At first a strangeness of new brilliant scenes peopled her mind and kept her body's gaze. But as she moved across the changing earth, a deeper consciousness welled up in her. Simply by traveling through the world. Because there is a subconscious yoga that goes on. Meeting people, moving through scenes. If we are destined, if the consciousness is there, it will begin to come out. The impact of the world and its forces, the clash and conflict, the struggle is not meaningless. It helps to bring out that which is concealed in our depths. This is the secret which we don't know. We think only by staying in a hermitage every day, closing the eyes. God is everywhere. And therefore hope is everywhere. And therefore yoga is everywhere. And therefore the truth is everywhere. And the journey is everywhere. So as she moves, look Sri Aurobindo's description. As she is meeting people, scenes, a deeper consciousness is beginning to come out in her. This is the action of the world, because hidden in it is the secret divine. And then what does she discover? A citizen of many scenes and climes, each soil and country it had made its home. It took all clans and peoples for her own, till the whole destiny of mankind was hers. She had not come to do work only in a limited area of humanity. She had come to embrace the whole world, citizen of many countries and climes. So we cannot appropriate God. Of course, as Indians, we always feel God belongs only to India. But He is born in many countries and climes. If you look at Mother's lives and how she was becoming conscious of these. Just one little incident. Mother says so many experiences she was having of past lives which were coming into her as she was moving, and the forces that these embodied. And one such experience is of Murat. Murat was actually the right hand general of Napoleon, and also his brother-in-law. So he was the power that aided Napoleon, and Sri Aurobindo has written that I saw the hand of God stride through Europe. And he has confirmed that it was Kali who used him for a certain work. And when Napoleon discarded Josephine and he started feeling, I am the victor, I am the victory, I am France, then Kali broke him and kept him aside. Because that instrument work was over, and then it was only aggrandizing the ego. So Murat, she says one day she was sitting in a cathedral and something was going on, and suddenly everything vanished, and like a light it came inside and entered into him. And then she recognized, she relived the entire scenes of the battle that Murat has undergone. He died it, not tragic death is a way of saying. He actually, at the end, just like Napoleon, he had to eventually go into hiding, but he won many victories, did a great work. And then they caught him. There was a lot of confusion and misunderstanding, but to cut a long story short, he was to be executed. And his words are so beautiful, famous words, when he stood in front and they were going to execute him, all these soldiers. He said, I don't want a cover on my face. I want to witness. Many a times I have brushed with death. I have seen death. Now I want to embrace it. So he stands and he tells the soldiers, soldiers, do your duty. Flinch not in your action. Spare the face, but not the heart. Don't shoot at my face, that's all he asked. Shoot at my heart. And he died like that. Now, who was he? What made him move? The mother says, I was in him the victorious power that accompanied Murat. So she recovered it in one of the cathedrals, possibly in France. She was sitting, and that whole scene came back, and the entire battle she relived. We remember something very similar in Sri Aurobindo's poem Baji Prabhu. If we read it, I am 100% certain that Sri Aurobindo has experienced it completely. With what detailed precision he says that when more and more were coming, at one point he describes, we can't show it in a movie also, that Baji Prabhu, blood is flowing and all hairs entangled with blood are on his face. So he wipes off, as he wipes off the blood and pushes the hairs behind, he experienced within him the descent of Kali. It's impossible to show it. How to show the thoughts, feelings, everything together? We can't show it in a cinema, not in 3D, not in 4D. And Sri Aurobindo brings that scene so much alive. So surely he must have seen. So as we move through life, we gather these elements. Unfortunately, there are very few psychic memories in our lives, so there is very little to gather. But the mother, as she moves, as the caravan of Savitri moves through life, she gathers all her past within herself. So we'll restart tomorrow. Today, early dinner, so we have only one session. And what follows is something very, very beautiful about the entire journey of past life and what it is about. So tomorrow 5:15.